just working y'all first before I do anything. And this is supposed to be another set of questions. I don't know. Is it going to do the right one or is it going to give us the wrong stuff? Okay, I don't know what this stuff does. So let me just see here because it gave me a whole nother question. Just hold on, everybody. We got to wait for people to come on. Come on in. Share the information. Share the information, everybody. We have Restream, and Restream never does what I asked it to do. I mean, what are we paying for then? I don't understand how you're paying for something and you don't have what you're supposed to have. It says it's streaming. So let me go over here and see if it's streaming. Keeping it real with Dr. Lil. It does say it's live, but it's got another link altogether. Oh, did it work? It might. Maybe it did. Maybe it did. I don't know. I think it didn't because it looks like another. Um, to me, it looks like another. What you call it? All right. All right. Let's see where we go with that. All right. So I'm trying to get in here so we can start answering some questions because we are both supposed to be doing this. I'm looking and waiting for my godson, but we're going to still start without him. He said he's coming. So, all right. Here we are. So I see this is one side over here. I'll just take all this out later because at the end of the day, are we paying for Restream to do what it's supposed to do, but it's always doing what it wants to do. But everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome to Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. It's exciting as always to be here with you. And we live, everybody. So now we need to talk about what we need to talk about. I know people are at work. We will probably do another live later today, but we got to get in here and talk because I know there were some people asking a lot of questions and we want to talk about it. So I want to take my time and go through everything that we're doing. And hello to everybody. Like and share. If you have negative comments, I'm not afraid. I don't run from fights, everybody. I'm right in the midst of fights, okay? So fights don't bother me, but be respectful because otherwise we'll ask you to leave. But at the end of the day, it's not a big deal. We're just trying to inform the public about stuff that's going on so they can know what's going on. And then at that point, you can make your own decision about what you want to do, right? So that's all we're doing. Okay. I think I have the right, what you call it now. I'm going to just make sure that we're all here talking the same thing on the same page. Okay, that looks like it's right now. I think we did get it right. It gave me, I don't know, we got to figure out why does it keep giving you two different links? I don't understand why you would get two different links when you do this. If you are inside of one link, then it goes to another. So yeah. All right, let me just put this here and keep it moving. And I'm gonna just get this going, everything started with you guys. I'll just have to take most of this stuff out later. One thing about me is that you got to keep moving with stuff because if you tell people one thing, you got to keep your word, y'all. All right, so this is Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil, and I wanted to, my godson's on his way, to get on and talk about all the things that we're going through with many cases and community stuff that's happening. So you guys are tough out there. We have a lot of questions. There were always a lot of questions that come, and I like to address them truthfully and the best I know how. I also like for the court system to work. So I'm not into the manipulation and trying to control a narrative. My narrative is faith. I control what I do by my faith and belief in God. I believe God loves justice. I believe God wants justice. So I don't try to manipulate. So I'm going to get right into it. All right. So the first thing is the questions. I'm going to try to do most of the questions. I'm not going to do all of them. There's like 5 pages, and then they sent 3 pages to Rymir. My goodness. All right. So I got 4 pages. He got 3. But the big picture and our opening question is for our listeners. And the first question is, who does not, for people who don't know the story, we want to talk about, explain the family court case in New Jersey turned into a federal litigation across multiple states. So for those who don't know, we started a family court case that actually started, I didn't start it, but Rymir's mother started in Philadelphia. And then once she got gravely ill, I took her child across the state line, so to speak, and became his guardian, legal guardian in New Jersey. Now she started doing a paternity closure, if you will, in Philadelphia. And when she got sick, she gave me the child. She asked me to take her child so he can finish her school, last year of school and all that. So I became his legal guardian with legal papers. In that turn, we got the legal guardianship in 2011, and then 2012 is when I actually did the paternity in 2011 as well, but I had to go back to Philadelphia to figure out some things or fix some things or whatever you want to call it with my attorney. And my attorney name was James Rocco. Then we went to, and I had 2 attorneys. I had somebody from Rothschild, which was an excellent, Judy, I can't think of her last name, and then I had James Rocco. So when we got to New Jersey, I wanted to do the finish up with the mother, the paternity closure for her son, because that was one of the things she was trying to get done while she was sick and wanted to see that door close in a good way. So that's how we got there. So then from there, it started out in the beginning as a paternity complaint. Remember, complaint and emotion. There's 2 different things. So we did a complaint. You can't do emotion without a complaint. In the complaint in 2012, right away, the defendant said that the court had no jurisdiction over him. He filed limited appearance, and so did the attorney who was representing him. And the court, between what was going on in Philadelphia, which was really nothing, and then New Jersey, made a decision that day that there was no subject, and then he had already been contesting personal jurisdiction and limited appearance. He said he didn't have any properties in New Jersey. So that's how the first one went down. We knew he had properties there because everybody knew from not just tax records, but the motor vehicles and living there and some other things where it was very evident that he lived there. So we had to go back in that same year of 2012. We started out in August 2012. We went back in 2012 with a reconsideration for what happened in August, saying you should reconsider this case because the individual did have ties to the state. They had ties to the state. Here is the property deeds, and here is the tax records of these property deeds. So we brought in the 3. We found 6. Some apartments and some homes. And one of the homes he actually lived in, and his mother, etc. So that was very clear. So the judge at that point in 2012, he said, and it's in court documents, that he needed to see that on the first hearing, which is a debate on how procedures is done. Nonetheless, he did not consider it because he said that reconsideration, you have some judges that believe the reconsideration is not to finish what you didn't do or something to that effect. But it's, in this case here, it was the defendant misrepresenting his property holdings. In other words, not being truthful, which he also said, the judge on record, that if we would have brought him a complaint, not a complaint, but a motion to dismiss his complaint, that would have been more feasible. And the reason why is because of when someone comes in and does a misrepresentation of whatever, it disrupts or a obstruction to the other party's ability to have a fair hearing. And in New Jersey, that person is considered to have damages. And in my case, I did have an attorney, so I had damages about like $3,000 or $4,000, and I was entitled to that. Nonetheless, the judge denied it, And then some of the aspects of 2012 eventually went on appeal, which came back in 2017, which we'll talk about later. But nonetheless, that's out. So when that happened, and then a series of other things happened, Rymir had did his inheritance case, which is a civil law case in 2013. And then we went back to family court in 2014 about the fraudulent, trying to cure that personal jurisdiction stuff that we was trying to do in 2012. Asking the judge to look at the information. He said it was the same thing as far as he was concerned. This is another judge, and the court still didn't have jurisdiction, personal or subject. Through a series of events with the attorneys and the client, through 2017, there was an appeal that was done, and that appeal was returned. There were different things that happened, which we were trying to do in terms of rectifying. That wasn't a lot. And then, of course, it was the defendant, unfortunately, in our opinion, his attorney actually, in looking for, and we felt to be enriched because she had a rich client. So we were finding ourselves in the court a lot, and we didn't know why. Now, some of this we had an attorney, some we didn't, because an attorney we had before went on to other things. And then the next attorney we had eventually got sick. But all that led to going to district court. District court was the place where we were going to first move it to entirely. The defendant, one of the defendants was Wanda Satterwhite. And then there was other things, other options we had. So nonetheless, to make a long story short, because the defendant said his jurisdiction was not in New Jersey as far as personal, we went where he was, which is why we wound up being in California, because eventually when we got around to doing what we were doing, that's when it was. But when you have fraud and things like fraud, you don't have to worry about, I won't say you don't have to worry about statute of limitations, but you have some wiggle room. In this case, because there was different things going on, and because the parties and defendants were still saying the same story, it renewed our request in terms of fraud upon the court. That wasn't the only problem, though. The other problem was no jurisdiction. When a court doesn't have jurisdiction, it doesn't have power to hear it. So it can usually give you 5 or 10 minutes to listen to it, and then they tell you, we ain't got jurisdiction. It's never a long, drawn out hearing. It's not. So that's how we got there. And then it says the use of void order. So when the first August 2012 litigation took place, and it was considered to be a legitimate one with no subject and no personal, without prejudice, meaning you can come back. Then when it became known at the reconsideration that there was fraud that took place or misrepresentation of the facts, it made the order prior to it void. It was void because of what was done in terms of the fraud, and it was also no subject, meaning it didn't have no power. So you had two things or two reasons why that didn't take place. So when we use void orders, that's what we mean. Void orders mean it has no meaning. You can't take that order and use it for anything else. So one of the things you have to remember is that a complaint is the mother of the case or the parent. The motions are the children. So if you don't have a parent complaint, or that complaint has been void, or it has fraud, or it doesn't have subject jurisdiction, then there is no value to the motions unless you are going to cure or fix what happened with the parent in terms of why it was dismissed. If it's dismissed without prejudice, obviously you can come back. So then you come back and say blah, 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 whatever. And in this case, you have to cure it. You have to cure that problem. So there are situations in the family court, which we'll talk about another time, because we're not here to litigate the case. We're just here to talk about it. There are some UIFSAs acts, or I will say powers to be, where you have the power to look or get paternity closure without support. So you can ask the court, and this is what we did in the very, very beginning, when there was a problem with the subject, we said, okay, let's just do paternity. Let's just get that out the way. And that's when we still ran into a problem with the defendant misrepresenting the property holders. So you need personal jurisdiction for paternity, but you need subject and personal if you're looking for support. And we were looking for college support back then. But when there was a situation with the subject at that time, we said, we'll take the paternity test and get that over with, just so we'll know. And that didn't happen because of the misrepresentation. And the judge had put all that in record. So between 2012 and 2017, the records was okay, except for 2014, when we went back to one judge. That was the third one, or the second, I should say, the second for the family court. That particular one, record was tainted. And then all the records after that were a mess. And I'll get into that because we had some statements from people at the staff saying what they were saying about this whole thing. All right. So what's the difference between that? Okay. What's the difference between making a mistake and a court acting without jurisdiction? Making a mistake means that you had the power to do what you did, but you just did it wrong. And then without jurisdiction means you didn't have the power and it's wrong. So in our case, there was a mischaracterization of what happened. There were people, in our belief, attorneys, clients, who were looking to enrich themselves and get money. And in order to do that, you need to lure us into court. We had to come into court for whatever reason, because you're making up something or mischaracterizing an order, saying it says something that it doesn't. You're trying to make it into a gag order. You're trying to make it into something somebody did so that you can embellish it. Now, why would you do that? Because you had an ulterior motive. How could you get away? Because you know you could. You know that the judge, in this case, would be helpful. Now, we started out with one judge in 2012, and then got another judge for the next one in 2014 and 2015 as it relates to family. Nonetheless, all that doesn't matter because everything goes back to the beginning. If the complaint or the parent is dismissed, then the motion has to try to undo that, so to speak, or cure it, whatever the problem is, try to fix the problem, and or nothing. You can't just do it. And remember, we had two different cases. So if your complaint is dismissed, the motion can't go anywhere. You can't make something up unless the motion is going to say how you can fix the parent, so to speak. All right, so that's that situation. So the difference between the court, make a mistake, we did that. Why do you keep saying the cases are separate, but all of the part of the same problem? So the reason why we're saying the cases are separate is because my case that I did on behalf of Rymir while he was a minor was for family court. Family court only does three things: paternity actions, seeking paternity, custody, and divorce. That's it. So unless you're in one of those bubbles, you don't come in there. And in this case here, if the parent, one parent out of the state, whatever the case is, there is a process that the family court has to go through in order to ensure that it's not duplication around the country. So in this case here, we were doing paternity. We didn't even get to anything else. So I had a custody order. I had gotten legal custody of Rymir back in 2011. So he was considered my child. And he was in my home going to school in New Jersey, eventually went to college. So that's how he became a legal entity or person in the state of New Jersey. So the cases were separate. So I started out with a family court case in 2012 on behalf of Rymir to do what I just said, to seek paternity and then or college support. Sometimes people call it child support, but he wasn't a child. And then Rymir himself became 18 the following year. So therefore he got out of school, I should say, because I think he was 18 the last year in school. But the next year he got out and he was in college. He did his own closure or seeking out his parent, which was called in New Jersey inheritance case. It's a whole nother legislation, if not legislation, a whole nother statute. It has nothing to do with family court. We were in the family court. They gave it an FD docket, but it was ruled under or governed under another statute of laws based on inheritance. And it's 9:17-42, something like that. So that particular one says that if you get 18, this is what New Jersey says. If you get 18 and you don't have paternity closure with your parent, you can get it. You can do up to 21 if the parent lives in your state, and up to 26 if the parent's out of the state. So that's what Rymir was attempting to do. In the meantime, of course, we had our prior case that I did on appeal. And even though the appellate court couldn't do anything because of the nature of the case, we had to go through a process that didn't really make any sense because they had said they can't do anything. So that was that. So New Jersey District Court. And then that's how we got to New Jersey District Court for the first time, in terms of the federal court. But when we went to the federal court in New Jersey, let me just make it straight. We went there because of the judges. We went there because the judges had signed orders when we found out what it seemed like everybody that we was bamboozled. Let me just double check everything to make sure everything is moving. When we found out that we might have been bamboozled by the system, and when I say bamboozled, meaning that we had people in the system were telling us stuff about our case, because obviously they knew it was high profile, blah, blah, blah. And they were saying things about what was going on with us that was not normal. So as a result of that, we looked into it and found out that what they were saying was correct. So that was one of the reasons why we wound up in federal court, which we under the 1983, because we were not getting files. We were just treated differently and trying to search out the truth, only because I guess the court was saying, well, we don't have jurisdiction, we don't have jurisdiction. So, but yet and still they were doing other things for the defendant who was limited appearance. He was contesting jurisdiction, but yet filing motions and asking the court to sanction us for talking about the case or giving out files, which neither one happened, because you can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But it wasn't like a talk about on a, whatever platform, because even if we did, it wouldn't have been wrong. But at the end of the day, there was no gag orders and there was no restrictions. What it was originally was an order that asked the public not to come to the courthouse, to come into the courtroom, and the public could not get files. But the judges made it very clear that they could get the files from other resources. And it didn't really matter because we wasn't considered a family per se. So there's nothing to not talk about. And in any regard, you could talk about whatever you want, right? Because you have freedom of speech. So that part was very much what they call bullying. It's trying to bully somebody into silence. And they use a sealed record or sealed order, which had no legal value, to try to do that. But it didn't work, because right away in 2012, the files were exchanged with the Philadelphia case, which is completely 100% with my attorney and other attorneys, because it was other parties. So all the files were intertwined, the orders, the transcripts, all that. But that didn't stop them. It didn't stop the defendant's attorney, who was looking for money, we believe, to try to manufacture sanctions, which they had no authority to do. Now, back when I was asking for something in 2012, like I was asking for a discovery and I wanted some other things, that when the person said it wasn't their properties, I said, well, let's do a discovery. Let's do an evidentiary hearing. And this defendant's attorney was loud and forceful and repetitive. You can't do anything. The judge can't do anything. He don't have jurisdiction. And they said this all the way to the end. But yet and still, they were able to get sanctions. Now, what I've learned, that you can't. So later, there was a lot of stuff that happened, everybody, with some of the judges, unfortunately. And those judges, we had to take to federal court, as you know. And then that judge that we had there, Edward Keel, kept saying things about immunity. immunity for them to do whatever they want, what he was trying to say, which we know is not true. But, you know, we're supposed to be stupid because by that time we didn't have an attorney. And even if you talk it and articulate it, they don't want to hear it. Your rights are not respected, right? And what it felt like to me is that when I was realizing what was going on, it felt like legal prostitution. I felt like I was being pimped. I'm telling you the truth, because nothing was coming out of nothing. And one of my attorneys who passed away, he was my civil law attorney because I had to do another case to try to get my damages. And that came out of the family. So if the family wasn't good, that wasn't going to be good, because they blocked it. He told me that all the way to his grave, that it was concealment of evidence. And that one single point of failure caused all these problems, which was the fraud from the beginning. So once you have fraud from the beginning, everything else follows. Now, there are situations, which is one of the reasons why we went to California, and asking for damages on someone misrepresenting their property holdings. And so people say, well, why do you need that? Why do you want that? You know, what's that going to do? It could have did something. We could have had paternity closure, and it also could have, I could have not lost my money regarding a person. And what happened when I was owed money for my attorney fees back then, what they wanted to do is flip the script. So you find yourself in situations where there are people who are not really advocates for real. Some of them are savages. They're not advocates. They're ready to suck and do everything they can out of the situation, but they're not trying to build the community or the person. Now, I'm not asking you to build the other client, but I just felt like there's some ethics. So these attorneys in our case became witnesses because they participated in doing wrong. And this is how we got to fraud and fraud upon the court. So it's a lot that goes with that. You have to look at the documentation. I'm not going to give everything, but I'm going to give you what you need, because I feel, again, that the courts, you know, I have people, family members who died for this country. So, and fought for it. I'll say fought for it. I might have been him, some that died prior to that I don't know about, but let's just say that. A lot of military family members, people in the police, people in the government, you know, high government. And I think that the whole dynamics of everything kind of just was weird to me. So that's that. So then, so the 1983 and other things that we wanted from the New Jersey court the first time was a concern. Now we went twice. The second time came later after the defendant went back to New Jersey for what, after we went to California. So at the end of the day, this is it, right? So it says, why is New Jersey case? What is it really all about? This case here, the instant case that in 2012 was about paternity. It turned into the fraud. Now that particular stuff did not go to the federal court. What went to the federal court is the things they did outside of their duties, even though they didn't have subject. According to the United States Supreme Court, a court cannot act out of its power. So therefore, what they were trying to do was act out of the power. So you don't go to federal court looking for child support, custody, and all of that kind of stuff. That's not what they do there. There's the state court supposed to overlook and make sure your rights is protected, and that they're doing things in the confines of their duties. A judge cannot turn around, a federal judge, and try to come and take your documents and do something with your documents. That's the clerk's job. So there's certain jobs and positions where they don't cross in that regard. But nonetheless, it said, we allege that the New Jersey Family Court never had subject jurisdiction. Well, they didn't. They had it, but they didn't have it. So they didn't want to have it, and they didn't want to look at anything that make sure they did have it. So, and then also personal. They never wanted to look at their own deeds and records. So therefore, they just ignored it. Why do you say the orders were void? We talked about that. The orders are void because once you misrepresent your property holdings and say false statements, which we know to be wrong, that makes your thing void. And the fact that at that point also, there's two things happened. The court made a decision, it had no subject. In August 2012, it said no subject, no personal. We went back for the reconsideration, they said the same thing. So at that point, that was that. Now, obviously, if you want to dispute it, you could talk about it, you could do whatever. That's a legitimate claim. But you have to cure that first before you move on to anything new, right? You can't ask for something outside that, outside of curing it. You got to cure it first and then go on. And that wasn't done. What happens legally later when the courts rely on orders that were never valid in the first place? So those orders are all void. So once you have an order that's fraud from the beginning and or no subject, in this case both, everything downstream is void. It is. So you say, why did all these things happen? Well, the reason why we believe the things happen downstream, some of them, not all of them, but maybe most of them, but some of them may have had to happen, like the reconsideration, but some of the other ones, not so much, was money driven. We believe that the attorneys and their, not in the client, but I guess the client maybe, but mainly the attorneys and the judges, some of them, wanted money. Now, I told you all on paper, and I said it again, I'll say it again. One of the judges, a Black judge, asked me for money. In other words, I was owed money because of my circumstance, which I already explained. And he knew that, and he knew I was looking to get my damages, and he was willing to give it to me, but he wanted some of it, and it wasn't that much. But I guess his thing was, you get it, I get it, and go. And he told me that once he didn't ever want to see my godson or goddaughter ever again. He said, I'm going to get you your attorney fees back, and I don't want to ever see them again. And what happened was his law clerk came and met me in the hallway before I went to court. And she told me that he was willing to give me my money back, but he didn't want to ever see Rymir Satterwhite or Wanda Satterwhite again. So when I got into the courtroom, he didn't say that exact. He just said, when are you going to pay me? So that obviously didn't materialize. I actually reported him. And then all I know is that he is retired. They pushed him out of there. So I had it on record, what he said, right? Because he said it on record and he forgot to take it off. Just telling you the true story, y'all. So that's what happened with that situation as far as relying on the first place. All those orders are under, I won't say siege, but they're not good orders. How does you turn a civil rights case 1983 instead of a family law dispute? When your civil rights of not getting court records, somebody calling your home like a judge, definitely bribes. There were a lot of things that happened out of the scope of their so-called duties, but the biggest thing is out of their power. You didn't have jurisdiction to even hear what was going on as far as outside of curing jurisdiction, and you did. And part of the reason we believe is because there was motives. There was incentives. There was things that were happening. Now, we were told by one of the defense attorney staff that the defense attorney, was dragging us in the court, which she was, for frivolous motions, making up stuff about what we did, didn't do nothing, don't have no proof. There was never no evidentiary hearing. There was never discovery. There was nothing. You just had a limited motion hearing. You dragged it out as long as you can because you were worried about an invoice. And apparently, according to the staff, they were using those invoices and that stuff to file with their insurance claims and get money from their client, get money from the insurance claims 3 times, 4 times over, and then give the judge a piece. In this case, the one judge who asked me for the money as well. I'm just telling you what happened. Now, at the time, we suspected stuff, but we wasn't sure because we had went to the bondsman office, and they specifically told us this is about money. They want money. I said, well, who are they going to get it from? She said, from their client. And this is why the client supposedly had made a song, so they say, saying the people were in his pocket and he never even visited the place. But let me break there and see what's going on. I don't see Rymir. Lord have mercy, Jesus. Now, where is he at? Lord have mercy. I hope he's okay. Let me go and just double check. I don't like to go rambling, and more rambling. Let me see what's happening out here. Hi, everybody. Nobody has questions? I got questions already here. Does anybody have any questions? This is the part to start answering questions. Questions and answers. What is your question? I have a whole lot here. If I don't see too many people on here, I guess 55 is enough. But your question is, what are your questions? All right, so that's that for that. So the California case we know is the anti-SLAPP situation. I had put in a amended complaint, and a complaint all based on the damages and some other things of someone's conduct. And the anti-SLAPP is supposed to be when you have made a public statement. You went into the public and made a statement, somebody didn't like it, and they sued you. And the anti-SLAPP basically protects people for what they say in public. This was not a public statement. This was a statement made in court on someone's conduct of misrepresenting their property holdings. It wasn't a statement you made in public and said whatever you said, and you just happened to be wrong about whatever you said, and you're protected under anti-SLAPP. That's not this. People were trying to make that. But my case was denied for that one claim. There were other claims that the defendant used, but the judge only denied for that one claim. And she assumed the premise of New Jersey's case was a valid case. It was not. That case was never valid. The complaint was thrown out from the beginning with prejudice. And although I didn't try to do anything as far as another complaint until later, to not revive it, but to update it, I was blocked, of course. And all of this was, I think, to cover up Wanda Satterwhite's age. I believe that a lot of this came from obviously money and greed to drag it out, to do what you do. But also it came from Wanda Satterwhite was underage. There was fraud in Philadelphia. There was fraud in Philadelphia, in our view, with the defense attorneys, one of the defense attorney and her husband. They're both in Philadelphia. He didn't have a license in New Jersey, that's why he didn't come. They did fraud in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. And their job was to block us there so they can block us in New Jersey. Well, it kind of didn't work because the laws is the laws. But between the finagling and the money and all this stuff, they were able to drag it out. That's why it took a longer time. And when the time came to do the client, because you got the attorneys is a problem, the client, and the judges, all complicit to the damages and the legal abuse that we went through. That's what I believe. So at the end of the day, the anti-SLAPP thing was kind of, I won't say a joke, because it's not. It's a big deal to make a statement in public with your belief, understanding, whatever you want to call it, and not be sued by somebody because you might have been wrong or they didn't like what you said. So the law allows you to say stuff, and that's fine. Or some people, because of their nature of their background, they might have had, be an ex-felon and all these other things going on with them, that they want to have a squeaky clean image, but you don't. And because of that, you want to use anti-SLAPP to do something for you in one jurisdiction, saying I can say what I want to say. What I said was protected speech. I was a prevailing party. Well, in New Jersey, there was no prevailing party because there was no case. Or it was a case, but it wasn't a case. It was no litigation, no adjudication, and no jurisdiction. And what they tried to do now is to rebrand, recharacterize what the orders meant, play the game, because you're at the motion level, and put an order on. The order don't mean nothing. It's not worth the paper it's on if it's not true. And if you have not did the discovery in search of the truth, because you can't really, because you don't have subject jurisdiction. That's why. But at the end of the day, you also had the fraud that someone would come in and misrepresent their property holdings and say you don't have something when part of the case could have been worked out in terms of that area. Could have been. But the court made a decision not to do it. Nonetheless, and some people say, well, you got to have both. You don't have to have both. And that's where there is some discrepancy at. But at the end of the day, not to go up in that, that's what you argue out in court. You argue these kind of things in court based on the laws and what was done beforehand. So your anti-SLAPP is something, it's a privilege to have and not to be abused. Where in one hand you say, I can say what I want, whether it's a lie or not, whether it's the truth or not, and I can say it in court, I can say it in writing, and I can be limited appearance, I can be contesting jurisdiction, I can be all that, and I can still seem like I can skate away with it. And I don't have to be the prevailing party, but I'm gonna pretend I am. All this crazy stuff that doesn't make no sense. When you tell people this, they can't believe, and they said, no prevailing party? Because you can't be. If the case was not there or there's no subject, there is no prevailing party. The case is gone. So at the end of the day, you have one hand people trying to get their rights over here for one thing. And then on the other hand, you want to stop somebody, on the other hand, like myself, from speaking out about my abuse or what I feel like I've been through. I mean, it's the same thing. And I'm talking, and I will talk on a public platform because I can. The reason why we didn't do too much talking before is because of Rymir. It was not because of a lawful reason. It was just a courtesy. And the courtesy was to protect a young man from feeling lost and unloved by whom he believed his father was. It's not hard, everybody, to figure that out. So at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons. So we held certain things close, but we could talk about anything we wanted. There was another party to the case, the New York Daily News. They talked about the case. They wrote about the case, and they talked about the case and wrote about the case. So at the end of the day, because of the nature of what happened, there was no privileges given unless we wanted to give them. As a courtesy, you take out the identifiers like the minor's name and names of people who might not want their name in it. But you don't really think about the adults, because see, that was for a family, real family case, for a family matter. We're not a family. We never was established as a family. We were in the family court, but we wasn't family. So I don't have no obligation to protect somebody's father if I don't want to, if you're not claiming the child as your father. I don't have an obligation to do that. So I know I don't. But at any rate, that's one of the things. So people, once you get an anti-SLAPP case and you say what you say about the stuff is privilege and you're a prevailing party and all that, then you can also marry it with a motion to strike so that whatever the person is looking for, in this case, it was my amended complaint, it would all be strike down and it would stop the case. So that's what happened in California. So what we did was we asked the judge for reconsideration because it appeared that some things were overlooked. And the case was a lot. And you know, there's a lot going on. It was really bulletproof. But sometimes, things can get missed. So we went to the judge and asked them to reconsider that under a Rule 59E, which is allowable under the law. It allows the judges to go back and do a second look, just in case they missed something, blah, blah, blah. And then you also had the defendant looking for attorney fees because they felt that if I won the anti-SLAPP, I'm entitled to fees. That's where the $119,000 came from, which is really, it came from something involved with my home in New Jersey. That's really came from. But at the end of the day, as I said before, jealousy, envy, racism is real. And I believe that some of the things that happened was because I'm Black. I do. I sure enough do, everybody. If I was like my girls, some of my girls, blonde hair, blue eyes, I'm only playing. Girl, doing their thing. Cute as a button, sweet as a button. If I was one of them, I think if I looked different, my hair was different, my skin was different color, I believe I would not be going through. Because who's going to be going through? Let me just wipe the sweat because I ain't trying to look sweaty. Who's going to be going through? I think the light. What's this? All this light. The sun is hot today, so I think spring is springing in, y'all. It's spring. What the fun thing about spring is that it takes its time coming in, but it gets there. So if I was blonde hair and blue eyes, I think I wouldn't be going through what I'm going through. And there's nothing wrong with being blonde hair and blue eyes. I have plenty of friends who are beautiful people inside and out, and I love them immensely. And they were the ones, they said, Lily, you would be going through this if you were Black. I said, I know. So we have what we call the typical ideal fraud case / no subject, blah, 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 drama case. And because of who we are and who I am, a Black female, nobody wants to resolve it. Nobody wants to listen. Nobody wants to do anything. But God's listening. God's listening. And there are some people listening too. I'll take that back because I know y'all going to be like, what you talking about? Yeah, you are. I know you're listening. There's people in high places and authority. And I'm going to thank you in advance for doing the right thing. I'm thankful because I think a lot of the stuff that has happened for a reason. So that's that for the California. So the California case is very interesting because, like I say, there's no prevailing party. There was no premise. There has to be a foundation case. We don't have one, which is one of the reasons why they didn't do what they did. The thing is about people, they don't understand that sometimes other people, when they intertwine bad things, damages still can come with someone, which is why we had a tort claim out there, right? The tort claim came from out of the actions or the conduct of the individual because we felt that we had been violated or all the stuff that goes along with that. You know what I'm trying to say. All right, so that was that. So that's why people are asking for what they're asking for, should try to enforce. Now, while we were doing that, another attorney from New Jersey, out of nowhere, came and went back to Jersey with the same client and called himself enforcing orders. What orders, I don't know. He was trying to enforce, I think, the ones he thought was in the beginning and somewhere in the middle. He also had something from the appellate division, which was manufactured by Kenneth L. Winters, and that was always fraud. We didn't even look at that at all because the record got really tainted after 2017, and something went to the Attorney General with Rymir, and that's why he went and did some criminal inquiries, and that's when his car got shot up. So that stuff, nobody even looks at that, y'all. But some of the other stuff, you kind of can pick and choose what's kind of clean, but some of it was a little nasty. In our view, when the defense attorneys came in, another defense attorney, he came in as a bag man, someone who was clearly there to pay everybody off. What's your price? And that's what the caseworkers told us. And his appearance and where he acts. And he also just said that he went to the bankruptcy court in person, I think this week. So he's trying to do that same thing again. But we were very confident that the bankruptcy court going to do right. And while we're talking about that, the bankruptcy court is being, I won't say solicited, but we're using that for various reasons. One, because it's necessary and needed, of the circumstances. But one of the biggest things is the adversary complaint. And I think the judge there is excellent. We're going to be praying for him to continue to do the right thing, to focus and be on point. We're grateful that the Department of Justice oversees all of these programs to make sure there's no hanky-panky. So he don't have to feel the pressure of somebody trying to do whatever. But at any rate, that's what happened in our belief in the past, because that's why all the judges we have on the chopping block, unfortunately. And I'm going to tell you, this is embarrassing to me. To be in a country, in a state where you have 2 houses and the judges are doing what? And you got to say, I'm up in this and I've got to do something about it so it won't hurt nobody else. It's not a good place to be. But God had an assignment for me and I had to follow it. And I'm still going to follow it. And the reason why some in cases we wouldn't have an attorney is because people got nervous about being, people meaning some attorneys, got nervous about being on the team in the public because it dealt with judges and it dealt with them looking like they covered up for a minor girl. Now, remember, in December, the Attorney General of New Jersey came out and said that we had jurisdiction with our case, which he's been on the case on and off for about 5, 6, maybe 8 years. He knows about it. He knows about the stuff we put in the community, asking him for help. He knows about the inquiries, and he knows about the federal cases because he has to litigate them. And for him to say what he said made it seem plausible on why people lower than him or under him, the judges, were doing what they were doing. Because he said somewhere back in, I want to say 2021, we got word from one of our attorneys that was working with us. We got very good attorneys that's working behind the scenes. And they said they work better behind the scenes because they can get us the information. And they pretty much said that the Attorney General stated that our case, or Coley's case, that would be me, it would hurt the public. And I'm thinking, hurt the public? You already hurt me. I've been hurt. I'm the victim. He wasn't thinking about me. I wasn't a part of his forum. They didn't knock on my door and say, can we work this out? So I'm just saying to say that the judges may have really been put in a situation, in a place where they were trying to cover the cover up. And then you had one doing it after the next because they all was working together. And you got 2 of them that's left. You got Stephen Polanski is still there, Stephen Polanski. And this other judge, I think, he's retired. Most of them are retired. But now you have a second New Jersey District Court open for a federal review, the second time, based on what this other attorney did in 2025, and trying to go back to New Jersey to open up and enforce orders that don't exist. And he knows it doesn't because the parent or the complaint has been dismissed. And he knows that those other orders are based on fraud. He can't enforce anything because he's coming in the door as limited appearance, meaning I'm contesting jurisdiction. So why are you here? You're using my custody order of my godson, whom you guys have no authority over. This is the questions you guys need to ask. What in the world are you here for? So if you have an invested interest, if you've put money into the state to do whatever you call yourself doing, then perhaps that's why. Perhaps that is the reason why you went back to New Jersey. Why else would you go back there unless you feel like you have an invested interest in something and you need something? What do you need? You're in California where you say your jurisdiction is. You go back to Jersey because of what? And talk about a child you say ain't yours. Put him on a form. When I go to contest it and say, no, that's not what happened, this is void, they block me. They use another docket number, not the family one, to block me from a federal program that's not theirs under UIFSA. This is what happened. And then Stephen Polanski, the judge, puts in writing, I'm looking for paternity. No, you looking for paternity because I ain't looking for paternity. He went to everybody. She looking for paternity. Are you kidding me? Because he originally didn't have a price. But then it seems like they found a price for him. That's what it seemed like. In the beginning, he seemed like he was following the law. And then when it was time for promotion, he had to do something that he shouldn't be doing. That's what it seemed like. So yeah, this attorney went back to California and said that there were orders there. It wasn't. There were orders that were from a motion, but there was no adjudication, no discovery, no search of the truth, just somebody saying what something that happened, which was hearsay. You write an order and say, yeah, they did it because you can. And because we're Black. You can get away with it. Had an attorney, didn't have an attorney. What are we going to do? Who are we going to tell? Because you sealed the record illegally, even though it shouldn't be sealed because it's fraud, and you really don't have a case. You don't. Because the original seal order, it was based on fraud, and nobody's liable legally to follow something that is void. Prove that it's not. Because I ain't got to prove that it is. All we had to do was show the deeds and the records and show the record how Mrs. Well, I don't know her name off the top of my head, but one of the attorneys, the Fisher girl, that's her name, how she said what she said on record for her client regarding no property holdings. And all of that information has been in the public since 2012. A former attorney that I had, James Rocco, put it there. And he swapped it up. Now, we found out later that James Rocco, my attorney, supposed to have been friends with Lisa Fisher's husband, Ned Hart. Good to be friends. Have a good time. And then something happened out of that was not beneficial to his client, which was me. I'm not going to go through the details. Y'all got to go dig some of this stuff yourself, y'all. But we called it legal malpractice. And that's why Mr. Rocco, James Rocco, was taken to court in Philly because of the swapping of names. Y'all remember that? Somebody swapped my name with my goddaughter. It had to have been him to try to muddle the water back then. That's what the fraud, some of the fraud, not all of it, some of it. We didn't become aware of it until later. And that's why we pursued legal malpractice. When he did legal malpractice, doing our discovery, he took the records that was in 2012, the transcripts, and all the things that talked about the fraud and no property holdings of Mr. Carter, took all of that and dumped it into his discovery and made it public again. He put it in there 3 or 4 times. So it was there 3 or 4 times. And then there was other things of how the records got out there. Y'all know it was other parties. There was college students that did stuff in college at Rutgers. The court actually gave a student the whole file back in 2013. So the whole notion of privacy was gone for Rymir. He felt invaded, embarrassed. He didn't really feel invaded. He said not invaded because he felt vindicated because people didn't know the truth. But it really depends on what you want to choose, whether you want to choose to listen. So I'm trying to stop and look and see what's going on. If you guys are asking questions or whatever y'all doing, y'all ain't doing nothing over here. There ain't nothing happening here. So I'm just talking. I'm waiting for my godson to come. And eventually I'm going to jump off. I don't know what happened. I'm just hoping he's okay. But at the end of the day, yeah. So that was that. So sometimes when you look like me, you're not going to get all the right things. And even if I have an attorney and he can be white, Black, or blue, a male, female, I still might run into the same thing. I don't know. I do feel that this is part of the problem now. So the bankruptcy is tied to the fraud because the fraudulent orders that were used back then was used for downstream. Every other order that it touched, which was everything, is void. When I even went to the civil law in 2014 to get my damages, that was put on pause until the court made a decision that there was no jurisdiction. That was confirmed. Anything, like I said, after 2017, anything they're trying to show you, it's just not worth it. And there is documents and witnesses who can attest to that, right? But the biggest thing is it doesn't even matter. If you can't get past the beginning, you can't get to the end. So those void orders were used. They were entered into a system that the escrow companies use. It was never a lien. The court never put a lien, an official lien on home. They never came after me. They never pursued it through the right channels. No sheriff came to say anything. Nothing happened. It was all behind closed doors. They didn't do anything. Somebody did something. I think it was attorneys and a few judges did stuff behind closed doors to make it secretive so that when I did sell my property, it would pop up. I didn't even know. So by the time I went to go sell the property in 2023, it popped up. The escrow company said to me, "Is this your name? This is your name?" I said, "Yeah, that's my name." They said, "Well, this is coming up with your property saying you owe money." I said, "I don't owe anybody any money. I am in litigation off and on with someone, but I don't owe nobody money because I don't." He says, "Well, we're obligated to follow this." And they called the attorneys. And of course, the attorneys was like, "Oh yeah, give me the money." In fact, the attorneys asked for extra. They asked for extra, y'all. Got some of that back, but there was $34,000 put in the escrow. And they were coming up with more money. They wound up getting 25 when it was all said and done, illegally. Technically speaking, the escrow was done, and I asked them, could they hold the escrow until I go try to figure out what it is and all this other stuff. Go to the court, try to get a restraining order. And I was in Philadelphia, and I did just that. And they said, no problem. They were I wanted a year, but they said they couldn't do it that long. So they did the 6 months, and I was appreciative of that. And 6 months later, the next year, 2024, they said to me they had to start paying these people. And then they showed me that one of them asked for extra money, and he gave it to him. I said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "We already had a problem with the illegal liens of the 3. Why would you give them 4? They were judgments, actually, acting as a lien, because apparently New Jersey had it in their system, but they never acted on it. They never did anything with it. They didn't do nothing with anything. No attorney fees. I never put out no money for nothing. So I consider that stolen. And I did file a police report. I considered it stolen, and I said what I said, and I went and did the restraining order. Restraining order was denied based on merits, based on procedure, not merits. So somehow the service thing got confused, but the biggest thing, the judge said that that's not typically, even if it wasn't, she would use a restraining order for it. That's what she said. So at any rate, I had to use the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office, which is excellent, by the way, everybody. And I was so glad I was here, but Philadelphia asking for that. And I asked them, could they help me? And they did. I also had my elected officials, which I'm still working with, and they're fabulous, by the way, both states. Better Pennsylvania, though. I asked them, could they help with the they told me to go to New Jersey too, because I still have a house there, but they said the house was there that you sold. So I did that. And the banking commission was doing what they had to do, the right thing. They had said to me, they said, did the defendants cash the checks? I said, they did. I said, in fact, I think one of the defendants or the attorneys who started this mess didn't cash her checks. She gave them to somebody else to cash. Just saying. I said, but I'm not sure. We'll find out. So we did. But at any rate, nobody never pursued anything. All that sanctions and attorney fees over the years and you doing this and all this stuff and trying to scare people, you didn't do nothing with it, which is I knew it was a bluff because it was a whole bunch of nothing. But the thing is, you come to my home, right, where we're living, and I didn't know you were doing it. It wasn't even in my township, in my county. I checked the county to see if they had filed anything there. Nothing never filed there. And I got the record of it even now. And it was never filed. So they use void orders they knew that was obtained by fraud, and orders that had no subject, where the court didn't have the power to make the decision. And even if the court did, there was no merits on what they were writing because there was no adjudication and no jurisdiction. There was nothing. There was just a limited motion hearing. no evidentiary and discovery was what I'm trying to say. So there was no realness to it. It was hearsay. It's just all of them because they couldn't do anything else but bring up hearsay, and nobody was breaking no laws because there was nothing going on anyway. So at any rate, that's what happened with that. So then they take and go and use those orders, to put on my house, the story, try to sell the house, sells the house very fast, thankfully. And here this comes popping up. So now what's happening is the bankruptcy court, along with the other help they're going to help me with, can do what they call a um, transactional review, just knowing they can trace it, a transactional tracing of what happened for just the escrow. It's a very, very narrow request. I'm not looking to take the house back. I'm not looking to be back in the house. The owner there is going to stay there. But we had to go this route because that is another dimension of what the fraud has caused. Now, I would never want to go through bankruptcy court. Never did. I had a great credit report. I had great things coming in, doing so forth, so on. But the litigations and all the things with this case mainly tied up my money, did all kinds of stuff it wasn't supposed to do after 14 years and all this stuff. So therefore, this was the route I needed to take after talking to some people. And I do have some people helping me with that as well. So that's just what it is. So now I just found out yesterday that Mr. Carter came to the bankruptcy court. His attorney said he came, and then the attorneys are on there's two parts of the bankruptcy. There's the bankruptcy to help you with all the financing struggles that you're having or circumstances involving that, for whatever that might be. And then there is the adversary complaint that's inside the bankruptcy case. So I have both. And the attorneys who took the checks and cashed the checks for the house, the escrow that they should have taken, knows that those persons and the title company are parties to the case. And I'll put all the numbers down, and it's a public case. Check it out, everybody. And then they were all a part of knowing what was going on. And then, like I said, recently, I just found out that Mr. Carter's attorney said that he came to the court on the 5th, I guess, or this week. And the other attorney has submitted a response. So it is what it is. So we're going to go through the process like we do. We're going to let our country be our country. We live in a good country. I believe in the Constitution. I believe in the rule of law. I really do. But when somebody try to break it and bend it and do the wrong thing, that's a problem. Can't let that happen. So at the end of the day, we are going to do what we need to do for that. So that's where we are right now. So that's what happens when they show the transactions of the escrow. It's going to show that it's traced back to a fraudulent order. It is. And the attorneys knew. They knew, and they should not have allowed it to happen, but they did. So let me just check and see what's going on. Lord have mercy. What happened to Rymir Satterway, everybody? Let's hope everything is good. Let me just check and see what's going on here. Here. Hello, every 65 people. All right, so y'all want to tell me what's going on? All right, so one of the persons that was coming on, he said he can't come. We need to talk about diabetes and dialysis too, y'all, because y'all really, this is really becoming an epidemic. Where is this child? Let me see what's going on if I can figure this out. So we went through a lot of stuff already, and I'm basically trying to tie you guys all in without going too many questions about it. So questions people like to ask about the timing. Why was it taking so long? There was different things that took it so long. One was because of the other things that went in between, like the legal malpractice, You had other parties doing litigations. There was other things. And then we knew fraud didn't have a limitation. And when people continue to try to kind of drag you back in there, the court, and say the same things, because every time I went in there, I always talked about the fraud to get it on record. So that way it always renewed itself, even though there's no statutory limitation for fraud and fraud upon the court. Just so you know, there's no statutory limitation. So the biggest thing was to let the law speak for itself. The biggest conception people have is when they hear that she's still fighting the case, they don't understand that there's different phases of the case and there's different sets of parties: client, attorneys, and judges. So you had judges and stuff. So now we have the attorneys that are in the bankruptcy court. The judges are in Third Circuit right now. The Third Circuit, because of what they have done with these orders, doing stuff with a case with no subject. And then the other things that go along with some of the egregious things we went through, which is traumatizing. And then your attorneys who appear to have wanted money with some of the judges who have retired, and that kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons why you'll find a lot of stuff will keep going and being out of time, because you have to do certain things. Now, I think one of the things they were asking about why Rymir's case was taken out of California. Well, remember, the case in California was about a tort claim, or is about a tort claim. And they were trying to muddle my case with his. I had a family law case and he had an inheritance case. They were two different statutes. And what they were trying to do was to have the cases compete with each other. And one of them would have canceled. We couldn't risk either being canceled, mainly mines, because mines dealt with the fraud. And the fraud had a higher standard, a statute in terms of us being able to prevail, showing what had happened. Because Rymir's case came out of my case. The case that I started in family court was first, and then his came. And his was denied because of mine. So therefore, we wanted to get my case together. It's our case, but it's my case that I brought, the FD docket, the family court case. We wanted to get that case together, and then you deal with his case. Now, he can deal with paternity or whatever he wants to do when the time comes. Inheritance case can be his family members and the person's family members. It can be your cousins. It don't have to be the person. Family court, it has to be the person. So we've been stopped looking. I've been stopped looking for paternity. Paternity ended way back in 2012. I never asked for paternity again, ever. I was dealing with constitutional stuff. I was dealing with due process stuff. And lo and behold, fighting for what we believed at the time, because there was different things that were going on. And it's a long, drawn out story how procedurally things can happen. But at the end of the day, the court never had any power to do anything, so it didn't matter. I mean, there were limited things they probably could have done. There's always something. What our biggest thing was to overthrow the fraud. So that's what we were there trying to get that overthrown, because we had the deeds, we had the records, and all that kind of stuff. Nobody want to hear about that. They don't want to hear about that. Yeah, Rymir's case came out of mine. We already talked about that. And they had questions for Rymir, but he's not here right now, so he had to address that later. The hard questions is what keeps the case what keeps us going to the case, as they say no. Once we realized that the law was on our side, you don't stop. And the other part is God. The first part is God. God says, do what you do. It's not your, what did he say? He says, not your, the battle is his. And he use an instrument, because other people going through this too. We know that Nicki Minaj went through similar stuff where people are sending police to her home. She was being harassed. Another Black woman, right? So some people feel that because they have power and they don't like what you did, or something very vengeful, very petty, will do stuff like that. So our biggest thing is, if you're right and the law's on your side, most people don't stop until it's done. So that's what happened there. The goal has not been money, but I did want to have my damages back then restored. Now the damages is a lot more now, but the damage is being restored. But then remember, the judge said I had to give him some of it, and I wasn't giving him nothing. So we want, the goal would be money, the money that we should do, not nothing outside that, and then vindication, reform we had started, which we're doing now. We're working with legislation. It does take a while, so that's all three of these things will take place and happen, and that's important. It says, what documents or evidence do you believe the public hasn't already have seen yet? I don't know. From what I understand, that Wanda's family, her aunt, Wanda Hall, that same name as Wanda, they have dispersed, just like the Epstein case files. She dispersed the files over the last 8-9 years. Now, when Wanda was here, she also dispersed the files because she could. She had no ties to the state of New Jersey. She had no nothing, and nobody. There was no order saying you couldn't do it. There's no gag order. There's no nothing. It was all made up. So again, we did what we did with Judge McBride's thing out of courtesy, because of Rymir being a minor, and we wanted to make sure his mental state was intact. But legally speaking, if something is derived out of fraud and you believe that and know that, you're not obligated to do anything with that at all. You're just not. So at the end of the day, that was that. So that was Ramirez. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff we talked about today, and a lot of stuff that will continue to be talked about and done, because that's the world we live in. And you have to know that you've been called for a special calling, a purpose, and a plan, and follow it out. The biggest thing is tell the truth. Tell the truth and shame the dog. If you tell the truth, you don't have to worry about rehearsal, and you ain't got to follow people around to the other locations to try to see if you can get the information, or you can twist it and burn it and twist it and burn it. We come against all that. Well, I'm not intimidated by nothing. Wherever I go in confidence, and I go in God, because God sent me there. And I'm fully confident He's going to take me to higher heights and deeper depths. So it's not about a person and what they have and don't have. And you can send whatever you want to send and do what you're going to do. But I'm going to do what I'm going to do too. And I'm going to send what I have to send. And just like you can use the tools over here, I can use the tools too. That's the way this country works. So I wish sometimes, that things were different in terms of having a whole lot of teams of attorneys. But I'd rather have credibility too. And I find that some of the attorneys and things, unfortunately now, not all of them, but some of them, something's lost. The greed is so much. But I'm thinking to myself, do you really want to feed yourself and your kids and your family and everybody else in a way that the money stinks? That the money's got to hold your nose? I just don't feel like that's the way you have to do it. It seems to me you should be able to do it the way God wants you to do it. Now, and I say, okay, some people ain't into God. They into themselves. I get you. But at the end of the day, don't you want better? Don't you want better? So at the end of the day, I don't see any more questions, and I'm going to head on out. But I'm glad. I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you. Oh, so now Rymir wants to come in. This child, Lord have mercy. He said it only. Yes, just come on so the people can see you. Lord have mercy. Jesus, help me, God. Let me see what he's saying, y'all. Okay, so he's got to do what he got to do. The timing got messed up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has the Rymir, All right. So yes, try to come on for a few. I was about. Oh Lord, help me, Jesus. Yeah. So my biggest thing, everybody, is we gonna be fine. You gonna be fine. Y'all know this, right? We gonna be fine. The rule of law will prevail. You don't have to break in nobody's car. You don't have to shatter their car. You don't have to blow the car up. You ain't got to shoot them. You ain't got to come driving on their their porch or the grass. You ain't got to knock on their window. You don't have to do any of that. You ain't got to follow people around to see what they're doing. If the truth prevails and it's there for you, what's the problem? Now, if it's not, we can talk about it like an adult. I think. But at the end of the day, if you don't want to, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we're always available to talk and try to resolve issues that has been going on for all this time. That makes no sense. But when you start dealing with people's rights, that's a problem. And that's the whole thing. Let me just make sure this child can get on. You know what? I think, oh Lord, did I give him the right? Maybe I didn't give him the right thing. Hold on, everybody, because this child gonna drive me crazy because he's doing too many things at one time, and is causing him to forget stuff. All right, let me see if I gave him the right thing. Yeah, I did. Look like I did. All right, so we'll see what he's going to do in the next few minutes. Other than that, we're going to head on out because mama got to keep moving. But at the end of the day, I want you all to be encouraged. I want you to stay alert. I don't know all the answers to everything, but I do know what I do know. And I know that we tried our best to be authentic and have integrity and definitely not going to no court lying in front of the judge. I mean, the judges to me, and I'm not saying they are, almost next best thing to God. They're put in place, not all of them, for a reason. And I feel like they have a call. And I know God says that the heart of the judge is in his hands and he can turn it any way he wants. So my focus is on God. It's not on people. But I will pray for my judges. I pray for the bankruptcy judge. I think he's great and wonderful. And I pray to God, keep him, keep him, keep him. I pray for Shirley Garnett in California, that she continues to be the Black woman that God has called her to be, that she will do what's right by the law, that she will do what's right. I know she will. She looked like a saved girl to me. I know saved women when I see them. But I know there's pressure too. But I pray that she will be all that God has called her to be every day of her life. Because what God has for you is for you. And if people don't want to give it to you, people don't want to act like this, and people don't want to call you, it's okay. I'm going to call myself. And I'm going to be myself because I'm going to be happy and supportive of myself. So, and then I'm praying for the judge and the other judge in district court in New Jersey, the Kill guy, Edward. We're concerned about him. I ain't going to lie. Really concerned. And he's a minority, Asian, Chinese, or something. And you would think he would know about, but see, sometimes people can get up and stuff and don't understand why they're there and then get caught up in it. And then the Attorney General and how the whole state of New Jersey, he had access to, if you will, the whole state. We were sending things to the New Jersey Attorney General's office we sent over 30 letters in the last 14 years. 30 letters, begging for help, pleading for help for all the things that were happening to us. And then Rymir in 2021 put in an inquiry with the prosecutor's office about the false statements and things that the attorneys made in the courtroom, because that's how you have to do it in Camden, New Jersey. If somebody lies, has perjury and all that, that's done. You got to go out with the prosecutor's office about the municipal's office with the municipal office in New Camden about what was done in the courtroom, because the police don't take anything that happens in the courthouse. And then that municipal information, which was filled out completely, and the lady said it, she stamped it and everything, and it went to the prosecutor's office. And they played a game with it. And then right after that, Rymir's car got shot up. Literally, 35 rounds of fire, 6 hit the car. Just telling you what happened. And then all y'all know that somebody came to my home. Somebody came to my home many times, unfortunately, in New Jersey, the home I sold. The ones that are memorable, the ones that stuck out, the ones that were kind of traumatizing, was when they first started coming in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. And Rymir is a nighthawk. In fact, he's a vampire, a good one though. And one time he was up that time. And I'm asleep, y'all. 4 o'clock in the morning. That's some praying. but I wasn't praying that night. And the person drove on our grass from 2 houses away. Instead of coming up on the house, because we'll see the light, they cut the light off based on the camera, drove from my neighbor's house 2 houses away to my house, and slowly went up the steps and knocked on the door. Rymir said it startled him. Nonetheless, he didn't answer the door. Saw it on the camera the next morning, and you saw the tracks in the grass. My neighbors were really upset about it. I said, "What is?" They said, "What's going on here?" I said, "I think it has something to do with this case." I said, "Because every time we file something or do something, something happens." And then Rymir was getting windows, people knocking on the window, because his room was on the first level of the house. And then the third thing major that I'm remembering, because there was a lot of other stuff, mischiefs, coming, knocking stuff over, all kinds of stuff every time the filing came. And then somebody came in the back of the house. I told the story and I put it in a police report. It was 2 men. It was in an even time of the fall, because I remember it got dark quick. I'm working in my office at home. And the one man said, "You gonna get in here?" He said, "It's gonna be hard to get in here." So here's Rymir, everybody. I was just telling everybody everything. So I figure you overloaded your schedule again.
Yeah, I ain't mean to. I'm at therapy right now.
You're gonna hurt people, you're gonna get people gonna get you, Rymir. So say something, whatever you need to
My
say. I mean, you had a lot of questions that were sent that on your thing. You want to look at them real quick and do what you can without stressing yourself out. I don't want you to stress yourself out. But I've been on here for about an hour, and
yeah, questionnaire. You gonna put me on a questionnaire so I say no,
well,
I'm cool.
there I can. You want me to go to it for you and say it for you? You want me to read it for you?
Yeah, that'll be
You
cool
want to just,
if
what
you
do you
can.
want to do? Because I had somebody sent
Well,
the
you could
question.
pull it up too. You actually pull it up too.
You want me to put it on here? I could put it on the Zoom. Can you see it on the Zoom, or what do you think?
Yeah, whatever's more comfortable for you, guys. I'm cool
I
with
mean,
it.
I thought it was
I'll
with
just
you.
go
I
off the
mean,
interview.
it's on your phone, but I don't know if you could do that while you're talking. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's confusing.
Yeah, it probably kicked me out.
All right. So I just put it in there for the chat. The first thing it says, "Why did you have your case withdrawn in California?" So were they trying to
Why
make
did I
you,
have it withdrawn?
yeah, why was your case withdrawn in California?
Basically, the course. We have course. We just had to pull it out for right now to be able to use it in the future because them guys was trying to dismiss it with prejudice and do this crazy stuff in the court. So we just basically was playing smart and took it out. We didn't say we was finished with it or anything like that. We just took it out for right now, and you know we still can use it in the future. The courts are doing a lot of craziness behind closed doors, like I said before, and we just happen to catch that and beat them to the punch. So it wasn't really bad. It's just like we still working on seeing a lot going on. It really is a lot going on.
And then they have, are you going to pursue any charges against Jay-Z? I don't know what they're talking about there. I guess it might be with your mom's situation. I'm not sure. Were you, because you don't,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Me and Godmother been talking a lot, so that's why I said we have a lot going on. So we are going to pursue some charges. I don't know. I don't know all of them at the moment, but we are going to pursue. It's always been a bigger picture than us. It's always been bigger than us. So we want to just make sure we going in the courts and got all our information correct and make sure we presenting everything in the correct way so the judge can't deny nothing.
right. I mean, they'll try to do whatever, but as long as you're the law on your
Yeah,
side,
they still
that's how
going,
you,
but we
that's how
want to
you
make
bring
sure
it
we
back.
right
Yeah,
before we
when they
go
try
back in
to
the
do it,
courts. Feel
right,
like they playing a whole lot of games.
right.
Them
And if
guys
you
is
have the law, you just bring it back with the law. And if they, that's why you don't seal a record, because they try to,
seriously. I mean, they can't fight fraud. And once you do it, it's there.
mm-hmm.
Something
What's
that's going
going
to
on
forever
with your
be there.
music? Well, the next question is, what's going on with your music?
Well, I've been writing a lot, but and I said this year I'm gonna start penning a lot more music down. I've been caught up with the family. It's been, as I said, it's been a lot of family death, so I've been more disconnected with the family and just catching up, working a whole lot,
Mm-hmm.
working with the kids, coming home to the kids. So it's been busy for me, but I can't complain. Just
Right.
explaining. So it's just it's a whole lot that's gonna be, in my mind this year that's gonna get done, and I just gotta take one day at a time. But I definitely got a lot of music that I've been writing, and I'm definitely gonna be putting it out this year. So y'all just stay tuned and just support me.
What about 50 Cent and Kanye? Are they still trying to help you? Do you know about anything with
Well, I
that?
wouldn't know right about now, like probably behind closed doors, but I haven't spoke to them guys, so I can't, sit there and put words in their mouth. But it's definitely I love the energy. If they can help me in any type of way. If I can help them, I'm definitely open.
Okay, let me see here. The next one. Um, do you think Nicki Minaj is right about your father? What does she mean? I don't know what they mean by that.
Mm.
Do you think it's a blessing
Yeah, I
that you
don't know. I
never?
can't think.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. And this is, do you think it's a blessing that you never went to stay with him?
Maybe I feel like, I wouldn't say it's a blessing, but I say it's a blessing. I wake up every day, get to spend time with my family. But I actually love the people that's in my life, and they actually taught me a lot. Everybody I done ran into, all my family members, all my friends, a lot of people I didn't meet, but talk to them over the internet and all that. So I say the world is my family. So just not being able to connect with one person, it might hurt if if everything is true, and we may never find out. But you gotta live life and just be the best you.
Yeah, there's a person here. I'm looking at the questions. They said it's outrageous how they've been able to get away with all of this stuff.
Yeah, I
Um,
said the same thing.
yeah, it's people can't believe it. Let me look at the live thing. Uh, somehow you lose it.
It actually should scare people. Now, it ain't gonna say scary like on be
It
afraid.
should
You should
scare
never,
people.
you should never be afraid. But at the same time, you should be a little scared to know that you're going in these courtrooms and they just creating, rules for their benefit and loopholes that they can use at will. So it's like, if I say this all the time, if we don't stop it, who gonna do something about it if the people don't do it? And
Right.
all us together, they can't stop us. So we just gotta move off of more energy and start doing a lot more.
All right. And just let me know if you have to go too. I mean, I don't want you to be, because we got to manage our stuff
Mhm.
where it's not a situation. Um, what else? What else? She said the last one was about Nikki, right? Oh, wait a minute. I was over here. Um, this says Beyonce. I heard that she sent people to our house in Jersey.
Man, God, mom, how stuff is. I don't know who's sending. Maybe, maybe not. Like it's so crazy. We don't know who's popping up, where they're coming from. It's like, hey, we just take it as it comes and just deal with the situation.
And they said Jay is now following your godmother to the bankruptcy court. I kind of talked to them about that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, God, I think that's crazy. I think the court systems, as I said before, they let people, use loopholes and basically use bully tactics to try to come after you to their will. And when it's really we fighting for the truth, these people, they don't want nothing to do with it. When it's time to do something negative or get a favor or friendships, and these people got these high positions, you don't know what they doing behind closed doors. So for us to say we know or they not doing this or everything is the speculations, everything will always be speculations because we will never know if we wasn't here. So yeah, we just gotta
Yeah,
keep
you don't hear
fighting
about the
and
Beyonce drama too
keep
much.
fighting for the truth. That's it.
You don't hear about nothing with her.
Seriously. I don't really be
Um,
listening to it. Honestly, how I move, God, mom. I really be just moving off of the energy. I really don't really try to be on the internet so much. I be like in the woods somewhere and fishing and camping. Uh,
yeah, that's your life.
that's peace. That's like peace to me. Connecting.
Right. Um, they asking the question, I guess, for both of them. What happened to the attorneys who said they paid good money for the court orders in New Jersey? They're talking about Kenneth Winters. We put that in the documents. We both heard
Yeah,
that.
they still around.
Yeah, we
Winters and
heard
them
that.
still around.
Yeah.
They still at their firm, and I guess them guys doing what they want as they, we're fighting them, and we gonna continue to fight, as I said. But them guys, they just need to get, they need to get something happening. It's not nothing bad. I'm not wishing nothing on them. But when you go in the courtroom and you just create lies and use fraud and continue to do it for years, it got to be something that happened to you because if that was us, we can't.
I know we were another race. This would not be happening.
Seriously.
Um, what was it like growing up inside a legal system that never addressed your core jurisdiction issue? You were in New
Um,
Jersey, living there, going to school, and
Actually made me want to fight harder, honestly. When I saw the legal system was broken and I got heard of it, but as growing up as a teenager, when you don't fully understand it, but as older you get, it's like, and me being in it, and just seeing the process of everything, it's like, you want to fix these type of things because these are things that's like, I feel like I wouldn't say old, but
it's a shame.
they're not being used the correct way, and the law, they're using the law at will for their benefit, and you can't do that. When you go into court, you gotta go there for the truth. And I feel like they done lost that. And now it's like let's use the law and all these type of benefits and all
Do the
these type
wrong
of
stuff.
different rulings and yeah, and drag shit out. Like I don't excuse my language, but I feel like they to drag out
And I
kings
think
and
that was
queens
because of
there.
money. Because what they had told us about Lisa Fisher and what was going on her staff, her own staff said it, that they were using stuff to drag out for money because they were saying she wanted to go on vacations and things like that. It was all kinds of stuff that her staff person came and told us, and me and your mom.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm
so
saying you'll never know.
yeah.
You'll really
I
never
mean
know
it
what
made
it's
a lot
for,
of
but
sense
I can
because it
tell
was
you.
always strategic times of the year. You wouldn't hear from them for a while, then all of a sudden they popped up. What they popping up for? And then Kenneth Winters was talking about, how they paid good money for court orders. I mean, he said it out in public. I mean, this was
That's
crazy.
what I'm saying.
I
So
mean, if if that was a
how are
black
we
man,
going
they
to
would have
know
shot
if
him
that's
on
the
the
truth or
spot.
not? If we that's
I know. That was crazy. And all of us
it's
heard it.
fighting against
He really
it's,
wanted us to
we fighting the
know.
system.
Hmm. It was weird. That was a shocker that day. And then it was funny how your mom had some of the stuff recorded on her pacemaker. It was crazy. And the doctor was like, "Do y'all want to keep it? Y'all want to keep the record?" Because he said it out in the hallway. But at any rate, crazy stuff, y'all. Some hard questions. Some critics say this sounds like a conspiracy. How did we respond to that? Does it sound like we?
It may sound like a conspiracy, but this is something we've been going through for years and years. And I can tell you the conspiracy is it could have been done and, taken care of. And I understand everybody got their opinion, but to just, run from it and the law to be able to help you and run from it also, it's like it's a little crazy to me. And it shows that we're going in the wrong direction because if any other kid, and not just me, any other kid around the world that looking for their parents, like we should be able to go to the court systems and get the truth. Like instead of, oh no, like we gotta you don't got this, you don't got this jurisdiction, or you can't. Let's play find me or chase them around the world. Like that's not it's
That's
not
not
cool. But
cool.
when it come down to come and take your money and they take your money real fast, right?
Right. Too
But the
fast.
process is real slow.
Yeah.
They drag it out. They want money. Yeah, give us your money, and but everything else is, oh, we're gonna take our time with it. It's like, come on. Then you guys, it's just, I don't know, Grandma. I don't like just talking about it, but it just, it need to be fixed. It need to be
It
fixed seriously.
does. It does. It really does. Let's see what else here. We can wrap it up. Mm. What keeps you going back to court after they say no over and over again? What
Well, I
keeps you
told
coming
you,
back?
it's bigger than me. I'm fighting the system, I'm fighting these lawyers. So it's like, it's just the drive to be able to say, damn, we came here for the truth, and you guys are trying so hard just to block it or not fully going through the process that you guys created to even see the truth. And it's like, hey, we're gonna do what we want game. And if that's the case, then I don't feel like these courts should be here. Honestly, I feel like they just here
Yeah, what's the
to
point
help
of
people get
having
through
it?
it. Yeah,
I agree.
honestly,
I agree.
I don't
And
want
then,
nobody to step over you or just tell you something without fully knowing the truth. Like you go on somewhere and it's like, hey, you're not gonna like that apple pie, and you never taste it, but they telling you you're not gonna like it. Then you try it and say, I like the apple pie, but they still want to tell you, no, you're not gonna like the apple pie because this is what we created. These are our rules, and Come on, that's like it's like a little craziness. Like we're gonna use our rules for who we want to, and you guys gotta follow it, but certain ones can break it.
Right. It's crazy, ain't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's where I think it's really bad. It feels like it feels really sick that
It
certain
is it.
people get to do so because our stuff, everybody's saying this case should take 5 minutes when you're dealing with fraud or 5 minutes with no subject. Why do you need to talk about it for an hour? I
And
said,
that's
yeah,
what I'm
somebody's
saying.
trying to get an invoice, wasting your time to a point that we stop coming in there. But
And then
and
it
she
been to
was still
multiple
trying to.
judges, like multiple judges have seen it, and it's like, only thing they do is play the pass around game. It's like sooner they seen it, and we seen this with our own eyes. Sooner they seen who was on the judges that was on it. We didn't even want to touch it because we all friends of friends. Oh, is that judge? Oh, Cherry on it. I'm not going to touch that. I don't even want to touch it. I'm gonna pass this off to the next one. Next
And
judge see it. Oh, is this judge such and such on it? And judge this. Oh, I don't want nothing to do with it. And it's just a pass off game. Like it's like that shit looked scary. It really looked scary. And for these, I don't know.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, and then the ones who did touch it, they touched something else too, the wrong stuff. So
Right.
we kind of think it happened because we were black. It says, do you think this happened because you're black? We kind of do. What do you think about the attorney general being over the state of New Jersey and making misstatements about the fact that he knows this case didn't have jurisdiction and what we went through, and for him to say that now because we were trying to fight the paternity piece because there was a situation where if somebody doesn't do the property holdings where you can get certain things, and of
Mm-hmm.
course they didn't want to look at the
I
the
feel like them guys. I feel like everybody friends and buddies. They don't. We don't got to see each other every day, but we know each other. If he helped somebody, it'll come and help them in the long run. I don't know how that works up there with them. You know, with the
Mhm.
with the, with the wealthies, but we gonna say that he's not. Obviously, he ain't doing his job correctly because as I said, they never got no discovery or try to look for the truth. Everything is a block and a stoppage. So
And
that's
basically they really couldn't because they didn't have subject. Instead of them just saying that, why drag us in the court for something stupid? When you want to sanction somebody for something you don't have power for, but you don't want to go out and discover if it's true.
right.
You can't have it both ways. So if you say something and we say we didn't do it, let's get the proof. Let not be hearsay. But you can't go
Yeah,
to the
that's what
next
I'm saying.
level. You can't go to the next level because you don't have an authority to do it. So you're going to try to make the motion something that's adjudicated, and it's not. A motion is just what it says. A motion comes out of a complaint. It doesn't, it's not going to take the place of adjudication. You need to really search out for the truth. So if the motion is something that somebody says and is, their word against ours or whatever it might be, then that call it disputed facts. That means you
Right.
need evidentiary hearing, you need a discovery. You couldn't do that illegally because you had no subject. And that's why you really wasn't doing it.
Seriously.
So why are you dragging us in the court in the first place? And then sanctions about something that we didn't even do. Nobody gave out no files. Anybody can talk to anybody they want to. It's freedom of speech. You
Yeah,
try
you
to
right
make
about that.
you making it something it's not to mischaracterize it so that we can look like we broke the law. I mean, anybody break the law? You can't
Yeah, I
have it
don't know
both
what the
ways. Either
you
you
know the
have the subject or you have power over the case or you don't. If you don't, we don't need to be here.
no seriously. You
Yeah,
right
so
about that, guy, man. We done
yeah,
been through a whole lot with these
you feel
court systems. I'll
definitely
tell you that.
prostituted.
A
So
whole
the other
lot.
one, what is your next steps?
Our next steps is we've been game planning. We got a lot of projects we going to be bringing about. Working with the community a lot. And as I said, I'll be dropping some music. We're gonna be traveling a lot, and we'll just keep you guys updated because we just got a lot
We're
that
gonna
we
have fun,
just been
y'all.
listening. Yeah,
We're gonna
seriously,
make
it's
the
gonna be
best of
fun.
this.
Just come join. Like
That's
seriously, we
right.
probably here in y'all town. We can meet up. Let's have some fun. If you guys, whatever. Honestly, we just out here enjoying life
We're gonna
to the
make the best of
fullest.
this. We're gonna make the best of this. This is not gonna turn into no sad story. It's gonna be a great story because God's gonna give us victory. He already said that. We're trying to keep our integrity and our respect for ourselves and so forth and so on. They calling you?
Yeah, I'm about to go to the next
Yeah.
thing.
The last question was, how are you and the family and how is everybody safe?
Yeah, the family, everybody safe. Kids doing good in school. Everybody taking one day at a time. As I said, we trying actually go on a trip. We ain't been out for a little bit, far as on no
Oh, good,
vacation or nothing. So
good,
trying to
good,
go on a little trip.
good,
Taking the family's great though.
good, good. So to keep that close to yourself, wherever you're going. All
Yeah, I
right.
am.
Love you, godson. I'm glad you were able to get on. And
Love you
we'll
too,
talk.
Grandma.
Love you. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, I told you we're gonna link up soon. I'll probably be down there in a couple of days. So we definitely
Yeah. Yeah, because we got a lot of work to do. So we need to knock some of that stuff out.
no, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting right now. So we gotta keep it moving.
No, we will. You know
All
how
right.
we move around, Mom, anyway. It's all
Yeah.
energy. Love you. Love
Love you.
everybody.
I
Thank
was
y'all
thinking
for the
about your mom
support
a
too.
lot yesterday. Yeah. Love you,
Yeah,
Rymir.
I've
Be
been thinking
safe.
about it a lot lately too,
I
honestly.
know. She's definitely in the air.
Oh yeah, she with me
We
every day. Them big angel
can't
wings be
disappoint her.
blocking everything.
Yeah, we can't disappoint her at all. All right. I'll keep you
I love you.
updated on stuff. All right. We'll talk
All
soon.
right, Grandma.
All right. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. So I'm going to be heading out myself. I think I didn't talk y'all to death today. I did more than I normally do, but I think it was for a reason, and it's all good. And now we just need to go and carry it out and do what we need to do. So I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. We have some great things coming up. We are very confident that the law will prevail, and we are not going to let anybody distort the law, break the law, bend the law, and all that kind of stuff. We feel that the places we're at now have more integrity in the system. And because of that, we are looking forward to vindication and all the things that go along with what we were rightfully supposed to receive in terms of whatever we were supposed to receive. So at the end of the day, you can go through the process, and I'm not pinned down to anybody. Everybody knows that we're having a discussion, and of course, the court of law is a very different place. You deal with laws and facts and statutes and blah 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 blah. So we're talking here, and this obviously can be used, but it's also can be misunderstood. So I can explain myself if there's somebody that has questions. That's why we had open up questions, and I'm open to questions. So don't interpret or misinterpret anything somebody says. Make sure you got it straight. We're going to do our best to tell the truth and not linger on lies and misleading and so forth and so on. Some people were asking about will we do an appeal if we don't get what we need or want, so forth. So it depends on what it is and depends on the law that was used, if it's factual. Maybe something we missed something. I doubt it, but it is what it is. We've been carrying this on for a long time, and it's a reason why people have tried to block it and stop it. If it's not a problem and it's you got law on your side, then it shouldn't be a situation. But at the end of the day, we want the law to prevail. That's what we want. So this is Dr. Lillian Coley, and this is Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. Be encouraged, everybody, as we look forward to, the new horizon that's coming. We have some projects that we wanted to address and deal with. So those projects are pretty much already in place. And now we're trying to do what we got to do. Thank you so much, me 2136. Thank you so much. It's good to hear from you too. And as we always said, we're here because we know that it's a bigger picture, and we want you to be a part of that picture. You already are. And we want you to stay focused with us as we carry it out. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to try to come on more. I have to work on getting certain types of equipment, which I had, getting it so that when I travel or if I'm in other locations, I can easily get to you guys. So that's what we were trying to do. So yeah, my godson got on. Very thankful for that. He does really sometimes take on too much. I wish I told him he has got to manage things so that way he don't hurt himself. But at any rate, let me see here. This lady got this. My cousin has this picture he sent me. Okay, so yeah, you gotta be careful with stuff. So yeah, at any rate, yeah, thank you everybody. This is Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. I'm just gonna double check one more time to make sure we got all the questions that people might want to ask. Anybody want to ask anything? Let me just double check here. I'm looking and looking. Okay, thank you everybody. Thank you. This is thank you. Okay, I'd like to say thanks while I'm here. And that's that. Appreciate everybody. And like, share the video. We'll be back to talk about stuff. We're just trying to educate you guys. We don't have anything to hide. So I do, like I said earlier, the court to do what it has to do because you don't want to try to come on here and litigate. I ain't trying to do that. I'm not trying to litigate. I do want to talk about it because it's healthy for us to talk about it. Very therapeutic and necessary because we've been through a lot of trauma with it. And then the car situation, I had already told you guys about the car, how somebody came in the car 2 times. The first time they broke the glass, searched the car, took some stuff, money, whatever, a little bit of money. And then the second time, and within a week, they had gotten the glass fixed. 3 days later, they came back again into the car without the key. Remember, I didn't get a finish to tell you about the car thing. So there were quite a few incidents that happened that my niece was very shooken up about the whole situation. It's a 4-year-old child. And for somebody to do the glass, she was concerned about her daughter eating the glass. But they had this way of getting all that glass out. But, it's always a chance you don't get it all out. But at any rate, thank God for all of you. Be encouraged. Know that God loves you. We love you. And we look forward to working together in the community. We got some great projects coming up, and we are moving into a great 2026. I'm just grateful that 2026 will be better, even better than 2025. 2025 wasn't bad. We had to do our ups and downs. Now we have some challenges, but we're going to work through our challenges. We're going to work through them. All right. Thank you, everyone. And this is Dr. Lily M. Coley, and this is Keeping It Real with Dr. Lil. I appreciate all of you for sticking with me. Thank you all.